Hello, I'm Dr. Bernard K. Means, and I'm talking to you from my house in Virginia, in Fredericksburg. I am a professor of anthropology at Virginia Commonwealth University, where I mostly teach archaeology classes. I also direct the Virtual Curation Laboratory at Virginia Commonwealth University, or VCU, where I work with my students to 3D scan archaeological, paleontological, and historical items. And today I'm going to talk to you about an object that actually has all three of those characteristics. Just going to reach over here. This is a mastodon tooth, and I'll get into what mastodons are in a moment. What makes this paleontological? It's a fossil. So some of you who study or are interested in dinosaurs probably have heard of paleontologists. So some paleontologists study dinosaurs, and some paleontologists study mastodons. And why is it historical? It's historical because it belonged to Benjamin Franklin. So this is a model of Benjamin Franklin holding that very same tooth I just put down. It's actually a little big relative to Benjamin Franklin, but I like it anyhow. So how do we know that this mastodon tooth belonged to Benjamin Franklin? And this gets us into something that archaeologists call context. So if you found a mastodon tooth just laying on the ground, an archaeologist wouldn't be interested. They would go just straight to a paleontologist. However, this was found through excavations in the basement of a building in Philadelphia. So we know that this is from a human context. Somebody took it from somewhere else. It's probably actually from Kentucky. They had it in Philadelphia. It got lost or they buried it in their basement. And then it was found in the 1950s during excavations. So that gets us to archaeology context. It's where things are found and not just the things themselves that are interesting. How do we know that this belongs to Benjamin Franklin? Well, we have two lines of evidence. One, the house belonged to Benjamin Franklin. So that helps us understand that this probably belonged to Benjamin Franklin. The other thing is we happen to know that Benjamin Franklin was very interested in mastodons, as were a number of the other founding fathers. And in fact, Benjamin Franklin wasn't the only one to own a mastodon tooth. Thomas Jefferson and George Washington also owned mastodon teeth. In fact, Thomas Jefferson owned a lot of mastodon fossils. So why were all of these people interested in mastodons? And what is a mastodon? So this is a mastodon. This is a model of a mastodon. Mastodons lived till about 10,000 years ago. They died out at the end of the last ice age. They're only found in North America, so they're found in the United States and Mexico and Canada. And they're found in many U.S. states. So you can find them in California, you find them in Texas, Virginia, where I live. You find them in New York State. Many other places have mastodons. And they kind of look like elephants because they are related to elephants a little distantly. They have trunks, they have tusks. They're a little long and a little low relative to modern elephants. But they lived only in the Americas. Now, they're also related to, and you're probably more familiar with this is a woolly mammoth. So woolly mammoths also are related to modern elephants. They have trunks, they have tusks. But they're found in North America. They're found in the United States and Canada. They're also found in Europe and Asia as well. So the mastodons had a much wider range. Like mastodons, mammoths ate plants. But there's a little bit of a difference between mammoths and mastodons, which is how people recognized in the 1700s that mastodons were different than mammoths and different than elephants that people knew about. So mastodon teeth are kind of pointed, and they're kind of like your back teeth, right? So they're molars. They're designed for chewing and grinding up sort of big vegetation. Mammoth teeth look just like modern elephant teeth. They're ridges. They're kind of flat, and they're also designed for eating vegetation, but more sort of grassy type of vegetation than mastodons ate. So mastodons are only found in the Americas. And you would think, okay, that's really not enough of a reason for the founding fathers to be so interested in mastodons. Well, in the 1700s, in the years leading up to the revolution and throughout the revolution, there was a leading French scientist who said that simply being in the Americas made you smaller and weaker than anything that lived in Europe or Asia or Africa, and that things even in the deep past would be smaller and weaker. And so the founding fathers, they're building a new nation. They wanted to say, no, we're as good as the Europeans. So we need to have something big. And mastodons fit that bill. And so they actually went actively out looking for mastodon fossils to prove to the French and to prove to the world that we had large animals in the Americas, and they were successful. So a couple of things I do want to say about these replicas. So this is a 3D printed replica. It's been 3D painted or been painted by one of my students. Thanks to the kind folks at the Independence National Historical Park, where you can see this on exhibit in Franklin Court in Philadelphia. You can actually see this model online. You can manipulate it in any sort of web browser. And if you have a 3D printer, you can actually print a copy of this mastodon tooth. If you don't have the 3D printer, or if you can't get access to the 3D printer, if you can't get access to the 3D printer that's at your school, I made plans that you can download to make your own mastodon tooth out of cardboard. So you can cut these out and glue them together and you can make a mastodon tooth. I would print 2 pages to a page from the plans to get it closer to the actual size of the mastodon tooth. But if you want, you can make one really big mastodon tooth. And when you're done, this is kind of what it'll look like. You'll see this is kind of ridged. This is actually 3D printed, but it's made from the different slices of the cardboard. So you would get something that looks very much like Benjamin Franklin's mastodon tooth. I also want to add that if you're interested in mammoths and mastodons, you can print and view this mastodon sculpture, which belongs to the New York State Museum. And they've kindly made it downloadable. You can also 3D print the mammoth sculpture. I'd like to thank you for your time, and Ben Franklin would also like to thank you for your time.